It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, after a devastating injury, this Kansan found a way to keep doing what she loved, and she became even better at it. It's a life lesson she says applies to many challenges people face. Also, you may be surprised at what we found hidden away in a small Saline County town. Amazing cars owned by this amazing couple. You don't want to miss it. Plus, in our Kansas Wild Edge report, it's a sight seldom caught on camera. It's a display of maternal instinct you've probably never seen before. I'm Sierra Scott. Those are just some of the stories that are queued up and ready to roll in this edition of Positively Kansas.
Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by...
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
A freak accident threatened to be a double whammy, not only leading to a lifelong disability, but also preventing Christina Jones from competing in the sport she loved. But her coach found a creative solution, and now Jones is as straight a shooter as ever. She also has a message for the rest of us, as Jim Grayway reports.
Her arrows strike with the speed and accuracy of a champion. Christina Jones has won 10 national tournaments. Since 2016, she has won the Kansas Indoor and Outdoor Archery Association Championships a combined 7 times. And as impressive as that would be for anybody, Jones has done it with just one arm and her mouth.
My dentist loves me. Every 6 months when I go in for my checkup, he always comes in and says, "Are you still doing it?" And yes, I'm still doing this. And he says, "Okay, well, let's just make sure they're all where they're supposed to be."
She has to shoot this way because of a freak accident she suffered in 2009, not long after discovering her passion for archery.
I was loading a car seat into the back of my van, and I just lost my balance and fell maybe 3 feet and just shattered my elbow and my wrist. It was a perfect fall and could have happened to anybody.
Despite the chronic pain, 22 surgeries have made her left arm functional for some things, but soon after the accident, it was apparent that Jones could never again put the kind of stress on her arm that archery requires.
Holding the bow was causing a lot of strain on my arm, and the vibration from the bow was actually backing screws out of my arm.
The doctor told her to give up the sport, which was the first hobby she ever had a knack for.
I was absolutely distraught. You know, that was the end of archery for me. I had just found something that I absolutely love.
Her coach, Ray Manful, said, "Not so fast."
When Christina thought she was not going to be able to shoot anymore, I'd said, "No, that's not really an option. We'll figure it out. We'll work on getting you to be able to shoot."
Manful had seen a few people with disabilities shoot with their mouths. After a lot of experimentation, he was able to rig Jones's bow with a little tab he made from a leather cat leash. Jones says it's been a monumental challenge to become proficient at shooting this way.
There has been a lot of crying and a lot of yelling with my coach. I stand the same way as anybody else does, and I hold my bow with my other hand the same way anybody else does. But my release is from my mouth. So where I'm looking, everything has changed, and it is difficult.
That makes all her championship wins all the more impressive. Coach Manful says Jones is among only about 30 competitive archers worldwide who shoot with a mouth tab.
I'm really proud of Christina because she not only shoots her bow, she shows everybody that it can be done. She has fun with it. She doesn't sit at home and think, well, I can't do it, because she just goes out and does it.
And she has inspired and helped others. Jones and Manful recently traveled to Illinois. There they helped get this teenager started shooting with his mouth. And they spoke to his classmates about overcoming disabilities and setbacks.
Something that I had really learned was that a setback is just a setup for a comeback. You're not going to win any medals sitting on the couch.
Whatever challenges we face, that's something for all of us to chew on. From a straight shooter in Wichita for Positively Kansas, I'm Jim Grayway.
She also teaches archery to beginners and is now executive vice president of the Kansas State Archery Association. And she's membership director of the Wichita Archery Organization, which operates the outdoor range where she shoots. A car lover's paradise is what reporter Anthony Powell and photojournalist Ben Lafine discovered in the tiny town of Mentor, Kansas. But equally as fascinating as the automobile collection is the couple who runs it. Take a look.
The small sign pointing to Rex's Car Museum really doesn't prepare you for the massive collection housed in two big buildings on this sprawling property. Just over 100 automobiles worth well over $1 million have found a home here.
But almost every car in here I bought within the state of Kansas.
And how do you go about finding them?
I don't. They find me.
But there's much more to Rex than cars. Born between Canton and Galva, Kansas, he grew up farming and tinkered with engines.
I think I built my first little car probably when I was in grade school, with a Briggs & Stratton wash machine engine on it.
He's always loved collecting. He and his late son had one of the largest Caterpillar tractor collections in the country. In the mid-90s, Rex needed a new interest, so he began buying cars. This 1911 Model T was his first.
That car was a hand-built car. That's before there was a production line.
He also showed us a sleek 1968 Chrysler convertible owned by someone very familiar to Kansans.
That was Bill Graves, our governor's dad's car.
Governor Bill Graves' dad's car?
Yes. And Bill and I was pretty good friends. I never knew the governor.
And check out this 1937 Lincoln Braun, reportedly the first car to ever cross the Golden Gate Bridge, as it carried President Franklin Roosevelt. By now you can tell Rex is hardly your average 87-year-old. Oh yeah, in addition to all his cars, he's also got a girlfriend. They met on the internet. And his girlfriend Thelma, well, she's hardly your average 72-year-old. They also shared a love for collecting cars. Thelma owned 10 when she met Rex, and hers became part of the museum.
I advertised for somebody that liked to race and travel, and Rex replied.
Thelma also grew up farming. Raised near McPherson, she too learned about automobiles at a young age and gained some serious driving skills. In high school, drag racing was popular.
And some of the guys would say, "Will you drive my car? I know you can do it better than me."
Thelma would go on to be an educator, but she could never shake her car obsession. In her late 40s, she decided to get behind the wheel again and start racing. She even became friends with legend Danica Patrick after competing against her at a Wichita race many years ago. Are you still doing it?
Well, I had to quit because I was racing against the grandkids, and that was too much competition.
She was 68 when she finally hung it up. Besides helping with the car museum, Thelma also stays very busy running events like weddings and company meetings on the properties she and Rex share. What a couple. Energy that just won't quit. Fueled in large part by their love of cars. And of course, for each other. When no plans to get married, right?
No marriage thoughts.
You're too young to get married.
Yeah.
In Mentor, I'm Anthony Powell for Positively Kansas.
As you can tell, Rex and Thelma are busy people, so if you want to tour the car museum, you need to call ahead. The same goes for planning a wedding or other event at their beautiful venue. Maternal instinct is one of the most powerful forces of nature. That includes protecting the little ones from danger and teaching important lessons for survival. Mike Blair has a fascinating example in this week's Kansas Wild Edge Report.
It happens every evening, but you're lucky if you ever see it. A wild turkey hen calls her young onto a high branch where they'll be safe from predators of the night. They'll need warming even in July. And safe beneath her wings, they'll pass the starry hours until dawn. Mama starts early, an hour before sundown, to provide them time to figure it all out. The hen chooses her place, a broad, flat limb for easy perching. She goes up first, calling her youngsters to join her. The most daring take flight, launching on little wings remarkably able. Landing is tricky, and as more poults follow, the branch gets crowded. Each jostles and tight walks, trying to balance as it scurries. Mom spreads her wings, and the poults duck beneath them. If one side doesn't work, they try the other. Some face the wrong direction, having to turn around. Some can't get under, leaving them outside warm protection. And oh dear, that just won't work. So the show goes on for half an hour. And finally, all is adjusted. As darkness falls, the family is squirmy, safe, and sound. And Mama sighs for what will no doubt seem a long and restless night. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Next week, Mike takes us to the unusual world of cicadas, which spans from underground to high above. Now to a Newton man who's combined his passion for trains, gardening, and models to create something incredible in his own backyard. But as Anthony Powell finds out, what Jerry Barnes has made is more than just something to look at. In many ways, it's a reflection of his life.
Welcome to a very unique backyard. A backyard where the sounds of a locomotive blend perfectly with a picturesque garden. A backyard that makes Christmas more festive and winter a bit brighter. The perfect place to take your mind off your troubles any time of year.
Just relaxes me. I sort of, get in a, it's almost like mindfulness.
When Jerry Barnes and his wife Sylvia moved to their Newton home from Nebraska in April 2018, Jerry went right to work on his garden railroad. The couple had similar displays at their homes in Nebraska, so they knew feeling at home in Kansas depended a lot on getting things going in the backyard as soon as possible. You won't believe what was involved.
Well, it's 56 tons of dirt.
56 tons?
Yeah, it's sort of amazing how, they'd dump a big pile of dirt here, and then the machine would start putting it in, and, pretty soon, well, it didn't go up that much. So we needed more and more.
Being closer to one of their sons and grandkids was the main reason Jerry and Sylvia moved to Newton. And Jerry tells us his son and granddaughter helped him complete the project in about 4 months. But Jerry says the inspiration for the Garden Railroad really dates back years and in many ways is a chronological reflection of his life.
When I was about 5 or 6, I got a Lionel train, like a lot of kids my age did, and played with it a lot. And then, even though we moved around a lot, I still kept the train and kept it going.
And just like the Union Pacific locomotive circling the track at his house, Jerry says he often rode the line as a kid and young adult. Jerry used his skills as a former art teacher to recreate other childhood memories, like the A&W root beer stand he hung out at as a high schooler in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
We had an A&W on the south side of town and the Owl Inn on the north side of town. So we'd all cruise from one end to the other, supposedly trying to pick up girls or something,
And he remembers pumping a lot of gas while working at a Texaco station. Seeing these sights today brings him right back to the carefree teenage days he enjoyed in the 50s and early 60s. But not all of Jerry's memories are pleasant ones. He fought in Vietnam. Despite the pain of war, he remains fiercely patriotic and incorporates that sentiment in his Garden Railroad. By, for example, running this locomotive on special occasions like Memorial and Veterans Day.
Maybe just a little release, because it wasn't a lot of fun over there. And, it still haunts me, so like most guys.
Meanwhile, Jerry says he occasionally gets families from the neighborhood stopping by to check out the sights and sounds. He hopes his creation inspires kids to do some old school type activities.
Well, it just seems like they're not into doing much with their hands besides their thumbs. Look at, kids used to buy models and put models together. I did that all the time. And build things. I really enjoy building things.
An enjoyment that has added so much to Jerry's life. And in the case of the Garden Railroad, an enjoyment that has provided a reflection of his life. In Newton, I'm Anthony Powell for Positively Kansas.
Jerry is also a proud member of the Wichita Area Garden Railway Society. It's made up of folks like him who've created fabulous garden train displays. From glamorous places like Hollywood and New York City to the humble plains of Kansas, some of America's big stars have a way of ending up in some of the most unlikely places, and they've come to stay forever. Jim Grayway explains why some well-known celebrities are pushing up daisies in the Sunflower State.
The Great Plains and cities of Kansas can be nice, affordable places to live, but they have also proven to be desirable places for some big names to be buried.
People usually want to go back to their family grave sites. Now, they may be from Hollywood, but they may be from little tiny town, Kansas.
Among the celebrities who have returned to Kansas for good is actor Max Showalter.
Well.
Showalter appeared in hundreds of productions, including the teen movie 16 Candles and the hit TV show The Love Boat. He retired from acting and left Hollywood in 1984 and moved to Connecticut. That's where he died in 2000. But Showalter is buried in his hometown of Caldwell, Kansas. Historian Barb Myers has spent the past 5 years researching and restoring old graves at Wichita's Highland Cemetery.
A lot of times you have people that are buried in small cemeteries that had big careers that we don't even realize.
Highland is known to be the final resting place for many of Wichita's founders, but Myers has made some other big discoveries that include the great-grandmother of the first ever female U.S. Supreme Court Justice.
So this is the grave of Eliza Flanders Day. She's the great-grandmother of Sandra Day O'Connor. She died in 1872. The family had only been here a couple of years, and after she died, her husband went back to the family home in Vermont. So she's the only member of the family that's actually buried here.
Myers says she tried to contact Justice O'Connor about repairing the broken stone, but isn't sure her message ever got through.
And we're not real sure if Sandra Day O'Connor even knows that she has family here.
Another famous grave at Highland belongs to this man.
Biggest mistakes in history made by people who didn't think.
Sidney Toler starred as Charlie Chan in a series of 22 blockbuster films in the 1930s and 40s.
His father owned the Toler Theater.
After cutting his theatrical chops in Kansas, Toler went on to become a big Hollywood star. He died in Beverly Hills in 1947, but was buried in what became an ignored and neglected old graveyard in his hometown. Go 80 miles southwest of Wichita, and if you look real hard, you'll find a sometimes controversial, bigger-than-life celebrity at rest in an unassuming, out-of-the-way place. Evangelist and pop culture icon Tammy Faye Baker Messner's second husband was Wichita area church designer Roe Messner. He grew up in the Harper County town of Waldron, and Tammy Faye had reportedly loved the setting of the Messner family plot there. So, that's where her ashes were buried following her death in 2007. While it is not on a main route to anywhere, Tammy Faye's fans have been known to make pilgrimages. Sometimes they even leave mascara or lipstick at her grave to show their love for this bubbly character they knew from television. Next, we go to Hutchinson, where this famous actress is buried who had no connection whatsoever to the local community. Oriole Lee was a Broadway and Hollywood star. She made this movie with Cary Grant just before her death in 1941. Lee was passing through Hutch on a cross-country trip when she died in a car crash. It had been her wish to be buried wherever she died. These celebrities who once lived exotic lives in lavish mansions are now right there with everybody else as the clock ticks and memories fade. Walk through any cemetery and you are literally surrounded by history. Every one of these people had a story. Unfortunately, as time passes, most of those stories become forgotten, and these graves just become stones with names on them that nobody alive ever heard of.
But to me, it is history, and it allows you to find a link to your past and prior past, and everybody else can, and I see the value of that.
Mike Maxton has made it his mission to document as many graves as he can for findagrave.com.
And I think it's worthwhile to have a photo of everybody's headstone so that it's available out there for the future.
There's enough work at just Wichita's Calvary Cemetery to keep him busy.
The reality is there's probably 8,000 photos to take out here. I've probably taken 3,000 or 4,000 in the last 2 years.
And it is literally a never-ending job. Whether famous or not, the cycle of life and death will continue on. Graves become all that remains of those we knew and loved, as well as those we admired from afar. For Positively Kansas, I'm Jim Grayway.
Well, that's a wrap for this week. Positively Kansas at kpts.org is our address if you have a story idea. We're always looking. Until next time, I'm Sierra Scott. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.